How well do you remember the future? Think that's an odd question? Well, by the end of this video, I hope to have convinced you that you do indeed remember the future. Let's talk seahorses. As early as the 16th century, dissectors of the human brain had given the name hippocampus to each of the two small brain structures, shaped somewhat like seahorses, located in the medial temporal lobe under the cerebral cortex. Only mammals have a fully developed cortex. Lower order animals, as far down as the hagfish, which have a less developed brain structure, do not have the hippocampus. But they do have a homologous structure with chemical and functional aspects which are the same as the mammalian hippocampus. Fish, birds and reptiles have been shown to utilize this structure for spatial cognition. As well as spatial cognition, physically encoding a topographical map of the real world within the brain, the hippocampus is important in consolidating short-term memory into long-term memory. Henry Gustav Mollesen was a celebrity in the field of neuroscience and neuropsychology for over 50 years. Sadly, Henry never knew of his celebrity status, partly because as a medical patient he was anonymized as HM during his lifetime, but mainly because Henry had no ability to create memories. Henry had suffered from chronic epileptic seizures, possibly the result of a cycling accident when he was young. To treat the seizures, surgeons operated on those areas of his brain affected by them and removed, among other areas, his hippocampi. The surgery was a success in as far as it addressed Henry's seizures, but it also left him with anterograde amnesia, unable to form new explicit memories. He could remember little from the 1 to 2 years prior to the surgery, and some events from as far as 11 years before were lost to him. His ability to learn new skills, procedural memory, was not affected, though he could not remember having learned those new skills. And his working memory, the scratch pad we used to collect our thoughts, wasn't affected either. But for 50 years, Henry's experience of life was an interminable feeling of just having awoken for the first time. Clive Wearing's similar experience has been well documented in text and television. Clive suffered a brain infection which destroyed his hippocampi. He was a musicologist of renown, keyboard player, conductor, acknowledged expert in early music, and was at the height of his career with the BBC when he was struck down. Clive's memory now lasts between 7 and 30 seconds. If, when visiting him, you were to leave the room for a moment and then return, he would not recall that you had ever been there, or even that he had ever met you before. Clive is now looked after continually and is provided with a diary. It's clearly evident that he has a perpetual feeling that he has just become conscious. His diary is filled with page after page of timestamps stating that he is now awake for the first time. When he again becomes aware of his consciousness, he often sees the diary and the previous entries. He crosses out those previous entries and puts in a new entry to emphasize that this is the first time he has really been conscious. This has been Clive's life since 1985. The film Memento includes a fair presentation of anterograde amnesia and is a good film on its own merits. So we know through the studies of many humans with brain lesions and disease that the hippocampus is required for the formation of long-term memories. It is also obvious, if you think about it, that all explicit thought requires the recall of memory. If I show you an apple, it is the stored memories of size, shape, colour, texture, etc., which allow you to determine that what I'm showing you is an apple. Without the knowledge we have stored in our memories, we have no way to relate to the outside world. The utter confusion present in patients suffering from late-term Alzheimer's and other degenerative brain diseases is not simply because they cannot remember the faces of those near and dear to them. They simply have no way of recognizing what a face is at all. They have no memory available to analyze their sensory inputs against. They're very much like newborn babies, with a confusion of stimuli and no way to make sense of them. People with this kind of memory disorder cannot even imagine. It's impossible to imagine yourself sat on the beach, sipping on a cool drink, when you cannot recall to mind memories of the sights, sounds, smells, and emotions associated with that experience. And without access to our memories, we have no way to plan for the future. To make the simplest future plans requires that we access our memories of objects, peoples, places, and emotions. If I asked you whether you want to go to a pub with a few other people, you have to recall what a pub is, what the experience of being in a pub is, details about the specific pub, its location and atmosphere, details about the intended company and how you feel about them. All of this will be recalled from long-term memory into your working memory via the hippocampus and allow you to decide on a course of action. We very literally remember the future. Luis Buñuel, the Spanish filmmaker, said it best when he wrote in his autobiography, "Life without memory is no life at all. Our memory is our coherence, our reason, our feeling, even our action. Without it, we are nothing." And so to the rats, which give us all hope. Give a rat a maze, and it will find its reward. Set up the maze so that the rat has a random place of reward, followed by a fixed place of reward, followed by a random place of reward, etc., etc., and then monitor the rat's hippocampus. What you find is that the hippocampus has place cells, areas that light up when the rat is in a specific place in the maze. More interestingly, when the rat is at rest after a feed at a random place of reward, the place cells will light up as the rat plans, if that's the right word, the route back to the fixed place of reward. The rat is remembering the route it needs to take to reach its reward. And there are place cells in the rat's long-term memory associated with the hippocampal place cells, such that neuroscientists can write algorithms to accurately predict which long-term memory place cells will be activated by the hippocampal place cells. But the scientists have gone further. By doping the rat's brain, they can prevent communication between the hippocampus and long-term memory, prevent the creation of the memory and the rat's ability to remember its route. A step further, and they replace the hippocampal function with a microchip. As the place cells activate in the hippocampus, the microchip reads the activity and uses the algorithm to stimulate the long-term memory and artificially create a memory of the route. The bionic rat is born. They've now gone much further than this. The same studies have been carried out in monkeys, and the first chips are very soon, if they haven't already, to be implemented in human volunteers, typically those suffering from chronic epilepsy. It's hopeful that in the future this technology might find applications in the treatment of Alzheimer's and other degenerative memory disorders. In an aging population where many millions are suffering from memory-related problems, this is some of the most important research currently being carried out. We're a very long way from a full understanding of the human brain. In many ways, it still remains the last unopened box of human biology, but everything indicates, unsurprisingly to me, that it is a very complex, but also a very physical thing. And despite our slow progress in understanding how it functions, in just 60 years we have progressed from the butchering, well-intentioned as it was, of Henry Gustav Mollison, to being on the verge of implanting an unobtrusive device which will relieve the mental anguish associated with the loss of memory, the loss of the person. Thank you as always for watching.